Jamie.
Are you ready, Ryan?
I believe that's it right there. If not, it's gonna be in with the regular payroll.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I believe that's it right there.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Here you go. That belongs to us.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Duffy? Mr. Butler?
Present.
Mr. Griffey?
Here.
Mr. Meehan?
Here.
And Mr. Nail? Here. Rose Pennington and James Green on duty.
I'm going to take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Favor say aye. All opposed? Has everyone had a chance to look over the previous meeting minutes? If there are no additions or corrections, they'll stand approved as presented. Public comment? What's anything sent in? No. Officers report, CFO report.
Hello. I'm going to start with the financial statements. Did you guys all get a copy of that? Okay.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Page 1 is the budget performance. This is up till the end of June. So our operating revenue is slightly over budget there at 52.81%. Operating expenses are about 52%. And overall, we're about 86% of budget for the year. On page 2, I did a little figure in here for you showing you what our operating revenue would be without the stimulus funds. So we'd still be over budget at 51%. And then operating expenses, it's still a little high at 51.64%, but we have a lot of annual one-time costs that we pay at the beginning of the year. So we're doing pretty well there. Anybody have any questions on those? Okay, page 3 is just the detail of the budget performance. And you'll see there, I highlighted the COVID-19 expenses. Without those expenses, we would be under budget on our medical supplies. But with those added in, we're over budget at about 54%. So just slightly over budget there. Any questions on anything on this page? Page 4, I just highlighted that COVID-19 leave. We've had several employees off a day or two here or there in relation to COVID. So I'm just keeping track of those expenses separately. Anybody have any questions on any of those expenses? Okay. Page 7 is the balance sheet, statement of net position. This year versus last year at the end of June, as you can see, our cash has increased from last year to this year, as well as our overall change our fund position. Any questions on that? Page 8 is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. This is basically a summary of all of our revenues and expenses so far this year. Anybody have any questions on any of those? Okay, and then the last pages there of the financials are just the allocation between Pettis and Windsor so far this year. Anybody have any questions on any of that? Okay, if not, my report starts on page 3 of your packet with sales tax. This month was kind of surprising, but I think we're still playing catch up. So For this month, we had 230,000, which was a $38,000 increase over last year for the same month. And right now we are just a little over $10,000 under budget on sales tax, which, considering everything that's happened, I think that's pretty good. Any questions on that? Page 4 is the bank balances. I went ahead and added in the CD there to show our total cash reserves. That has been established at the bank. Page 5 is our cash reserve analysis. That decreased just slightly, which that's just the ebb and flow. As of August 6th, we hadn't received our sales tax money yet for the month, but I knew what the amount was. So on page 6, on the check register, I highlighted that deposit and put a note, but apparently my note didn't print. Of that $32,000 deposit there, $32,789 was our refund on the work comp audit for last year. Anybody have any questions on the check register? Okay. Page 8 is the bills that are currently due. And then pages 9 and 10, I guess 11 too, are the details of those bills. And then the actual charges and the credit card statement are behind that. Anybody has any questions on any of those bills? If not, that is the end of my report.
I have a question. Just a comment. Jamie, with regard to this sales tax that we received, what amount did you say that was the catch up from the sales tax for the vehicles?
I mean, I'm just guessing. I can just tell how much the sales tax was last year versus this year. And
Right.
It looked like the big increase probably came from just the catch up from that time when they were closed. Yeah.
Okay. That's all. Thank you, Jamie.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Jamie, and I'm looking at page 14, but this is the general question. When we purchase something from Lowe's or Menards, we're using our bank credit card via Visa or MasterCard, correct?
Generally, yes. We don't have a Lowe's card, so Lowe's always yes.
Okay, and so, but we do have a Menards card, is that?
We do.
Okay. Are we getting some benefit from that, or is there a way to sign up for some sort of, I mean, every time I come out of one of those places, they say, you know, are you a member? You know, I normally say no. So apparently some sort of benefit there. Have we checked to see what that might be?
So at Menards, I'm sure everybody's seen that, but there's a lot of rebates with Menards that we take advantage of. So not every receipt, but a lot of the receipts have a rebate on them, which we file for. But then with our bank card through the bank, we also get a rebate on that.
And so where do I see the 11% rebate from Menards on our financial? What line would that be? Or what would that
So it'll generally be in the down in that rebate credit card at the bottom of the income statement. If you look back at the financials, like on page 1 of those financials, that rebate credit card included in there.
It's grouped in with the rest of the rebates from the MasterCard, Visa with the bank.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I'll take a motion to payment of outstanding bills.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Chief's report.
All right.
A little safety briefing. I think we've got some weather blooming out there. Everybody's gonna get a hold of us if anything, we need to panic for any reason, but so far it's, from what I understand, it's looking more like squall line type stuff, but, just in case this is a very safe building, we can just head downstairs if we have to end abruptly, that would be why. My report, starting on 15, start with the buildings. We've got a temporary fix in the water supply. I have not talked to them this week to find out where they're at as far as permanently fixing that, but it's essentially a hose that comes off of one of our main lines and backfeeds the station. So it's a temporary fix until the city determines what they need to do to actually complete repairs on that. So we're waiting. The water pressure is not as bad as it was. It's a little better, but like I said, we're getting it through a hose right now. So hopefully that'll be taken care of right away. Don't have any pending issues with Station 2. Station 5, the bathroom was found to have a lot of water damage really quickly. It started coming through there's that snap together flooring, I forget what it's called, pergo or whatever. There was water seeping up through it. I think what happened was sometime last winter, there were some pipes that maybe got busted and leaked, had a very, very, very slow leak. And then because of the construction, the way those buildings are made, essentially that trailer just eats away at the flooring. There's a lot of rot in there. So we got that cap shut off. The bathroom's inoperable. And I've been talking to the Windsor board. They're trying to find a contractor to come fix it. We could probably do it in-house, but I think they're leaning the same way we were, which was, let's go ahead and do this through a contractor so we get warranty. I don't think we're going to have, it was a big enough project. Our guys may or may not have time to do it. And like I said, they're down to one bathroom in the quarters right now until that's fixed. So shouldn't cost us any more. It shouldn't cost the district any money, that is. And hopefully they'll be back up and running there pretty soon. Again, just waiting on bids and people to bid on that down there. Operations, our July call volume is attached. I'll come back to that as it's on the next page. Missouri State Fair, they'll be showing up. They've already been showing up. You probably, if you guys have been by there, we've been getting more and more campers in every night. It's still a pretty low key event down there. Not anticipating a lot of medical calls. Hopefully it's a nice, quiet event. But as everybody knows, it's starting this week, so things are kicking off here pretty soon. Education, we've got CPR courses. I wanted to point out, I think I mentioned this in our last board meeting, but I did want to point out some of the instructor courses that we're doing right now. Justin has put on through the AHA. He's given instructor courses to save a pretty considerable amount of money doing it this way. He's taught instructor courses, which means Sedalia Fire and Sedalia PD both have the means to teach all their officers and jailers, anybody else they need to on staff down there, their own CPR program independent of us. So we don't have to drop what we're doing to teach it. They can do that in-house. So it's going to work out a lot easier for all the agencies involved, a lot easier to plan. It's like herding cats to get people to come to CPR classes sometimes. So the card's only good for 2 years. So it seems like we're always doing CPR classes. This takes a lot of weight off us and puts it on the agencies. So,
Are we an associate?
yes, we're affiliated with Bonneville, but we are a training center, so we can do instructor courses where we can teach trainer type classes. And we came a long way. Buffalo's helped us out tremendously with that. Justin is spearheaded that whole thing, done a fantastic job. So I wanted to brag on him a little bit as far as getting those instructor courses out there to the other agencies and ultimately to the people that really need them most, all of our first responders throughout the county. So, Roy, I'm assuming you're there. You want to add anything? I know I've got you down here in parentheses as a Missouri State Fair. Do you want to add anything to that?
I don't have much more to add other than what you said. They'll go in service tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. They have staffed 3 ambulances for the EMS division. All 3 will be ALS through the 10 and a half days of their existence there. So not really sure what call volume for them will look like this year, but we'll know at the end of it.
Reporting system set up, ready to go. Ryan's done some work on that, making sure they're able to do all their proper documentation out there. So far, everything's going smoothly. So it's easy to say that before the beginning of the fair. Like I said, I don't anticipate any big surprises out there this year. Let's see, EMT class is going well. The didactic portion, is scheduled for completion the first week of October. However, I have not met with Justin about this, but the state just put out a day or two ago. They're waiving some clinical rotation requirements for paramedic students. I'm not sure if they're doing it for EMTs. That's a pretty big deal in the EMS world. You know, a lot of what we do is through clinical experience. We do hundreds of hours of hospital time, hundreds of hours of pre-hospital time as paramedics. The EMTs end up with about probably 100 hours under their belt, give or take. And the state, because of the complications that COVID causes us, has waived a lot of those clinical requirements. They're not taking them away. You still have to do a skill, but essentially what happens at the end of a paramedic course is you've done this 100 times. It's been signed off 100 times. They're now using that as evidence of clinical competency rather than having to go take a separate skills type competency-based test. So it's actually something that was in the books long before COVID. I was kind of looking forward to something like this happening anyway. So maybe it's a little lining of COVID is getting this process streamlined a little bit. But an interesting little thing that the state has waived some of those clinical requirements just to, it's too hard. You have a third person on the ambulance. That's 1/3 more PPE to go through. That puts a patient and the provider and obviously the student at risk. So it's just safer to keep them out of that environment right now. As it stands right now, our EMT class will still be doing clinical rotations with them, but if it's a person under investigation or a known COVID case, they won't go on the call. If they show up and it turns into that, the battalion chief will go out and get them and pull them off that call. There's just no point in having that increased risk to our students. So it's we're doing the best we can instead of just pulling it. But class is going very well. Be done here pretty soon before you know it. We do have some sexual harassment training. We've had a screen went off the exact time that happened. Okay. We have had some HR type sexual harassment training. We've had 2 out of 3 classes. The next one's a week from today. We've also been doing some pediatric training this month, as well as a safety course today. Actually was held over here all day long. So got that out of the way. Supplies, Jamie had mentioned some extra money on supplies. Just so the board is aware, we are pretty well stocked up on a lot of stuff. So even though we went over budget on some of those, we've gotten out ahead of it. So we have piles of things that we might need in the future. It will eventually get used, and I expect that to balance out a little bit. Obviously, there was some increase in prices of PPE there for a while, but it is stuff that will get used. So wanted to make that clear. N95 masks are still kind of problematic to get. Sometimes you can get them, sometimes you can't. Everything else looking pretty good right now. There were some questions about gloves. We went ahead and stocked up on those just to be safe. But so far, everything's looking pretty good. Vehicles, did a final inspection last week of the new unit that is in Columbia right now. Trying to update this in real time here. I wrote this last week. So the AV factory out there does a really impressive job. I've been through a lot of factories in my time, and it is set up very well. I've seen some pretty slapdash organizations put ambulances together, and man, they've really got it together down there. There's a jig for everything under the sun out there. They have a custom line, a non-custom line, and then a van line out there. They're all running parallel to each other, and it's just it's a well-oiled machine. There's about 500 people working in that factory, and they all really do an amazing job. The final inspection was very meticulous. It reminded me of stories I've heard about guys moving out of military housing when they go through and white glove everything. I mean, we found any loose screw, any welding burr, anything like that. And our sales rep found stuff that Roy and I both just walked right past. So we looked at them very, very close every time at final inspection. And once we did that and got them a list, it was about a page long of just really minor stuff. We went and toured the factory, and then we came back into this room, and there was about 20 people inside that ambulance just knocking it out, fixing everything that we had any kind of issues with. So very attentive, very worthwhile for us to go out and do that. I wish we'd been able to do it on the other ones. This is the first time we've been able to actually get that final inspection and be there for that. And I'm really happy that we're very pleased with their manufacturing process and their inspection process there at the end. So the ambulance as it sits right now is in Columbia, getting some final details done to it. It'll come down here for some radio work or possibly, I don't know if we're all checked out or not. We're debating on where we're gonna have the radios put in, where the last conversation we had, we may just go ahead and do that in Columbia, where it's easier, everything's right there, just get it done, so we get it here and get it in service. Long story short, I anticipate it being in service, wheels on the ground, running calls by the end of the month without any complications. So looking really good. Very pleased with the unit as usual. CAD, radio, and Wi-Fi still need to be installed, and yeah, that's all we got on the new one. Let's see, on the next page, I've got call volume for this year. For July, 688. So we're, compared to last year, we were at 4230 year to date total call volume. We're at 4446 this year, so we're still moving up for as far as Pettis County calls are concerned. Fairly busy month last month, 428 total transports. And of course, still a lot of refusals this time of year from car wrecks and so forth. That'll probably start to, our refusals will probably start curbing off here in the next couple months. Maybe with back to school being a big question right now, it's hard to say, but I'm hoping that it follows the normal yearly trends of trauma calls decreasing, probably some medical calls increasing at some point. The only thing we're probably on the cusp of, and I don't have a crystal ball, but normally we start getting back into this cold and flu season. It's going to make things a little more difficult for all healthcare providers, just because it's harder to differentiate some of these symptoms of the disease of COVID versus the flu versus the common cold versus other respiratory ailments that start happening about this time of year. So, like I said, the good news is on that, we've got a lot of practice under our belt so far, and we're well stocked on PPE, unlike at the first year where it kind of caught everybody off guard and under supply. We're in good shape. For transports, flights, we had 4 flights and status level 0 events on the 2. We have yet to have any mutual aid being needed during those, so they're just not events. So we can tell we're not over or understaffed, so looking pretty average there. Winter calls, 69 transports versus 29 non-transports. Our transfers are 9 and 11, so we have been getting compared to last month, we only ran 6 out of the Golden Valley. We ran by the end of July 11th, and that increase has remained fairly steady since the first of this month as well. I don't know if that's staffing issues at Golden Valley. That's generally where we get them from, is they will only have a certain amount of trucks on overnight, so they have been calling us a little more regular basis down there for those mutual transfers. So that's a good thing. No surprises on canceled or invalid runs. Only 1 flight down there for the month, and 5 status level 0 events. And again, those happen when one of the trucks is out on transfer. Anytime that second truck goes out, it generates a status level 0 event for a certain amount of time, be it 10 minutes or 20 minutes or even a half hour before we can get the truck circulated back down there to cover. So no big surprises on status. We have not had to mutual aid anybody. In fact, a couple of those status level 0s were based on us running mutual aid calls, 911 calls, to generate those. So we've kept pretty busy down there, I guess is what I'm saying. Windsor Station, other than only having 1 bathroom, still really well. Any questions on any of that?
I just thought it was notable to look at the call volumes in Windsor were four calls off from last year, or from where we're at this point.
Normally we'd see a 4% annual, 4% increase over last year, so that's down a little bit. But like I said, we had a couple pretty slow months down there, but we're catching back up. So.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
I just have a comment. Being in management most of my life, it's not often that you get people to tell you good things about employees, even though you may have great employees. You don't always hear that. You hear complaints more. So if I hear something, compliment, I'm going to share with you, and I thought this might be a good place to do it, so we can all be encouraged. That Sunday, at worship service I have a pastor friend, small church. One of his congregants had a stroke. The fire department, the police, and ambulance were all there. he said they just were so polite and took care of everything so beautifully, it hardly disrupted the congregation. So when they finished, they were able to go back and finish their service, but he was very complimentary of the whole situation, not Pettis County Ambulance by itself, but, you know, it's just,
That whole
I just want to let
operation.
you know that, you know, the Pettis County Ambulance worked hand in glove with the fire and the police, and, you know, they just did a beautiful job from him. You know, it could have been one of those things where when they left, the congregation could have been all rattled.
Yeah.
But they did, kept their voices calm and directed people.
Excellent.
So anyway, I just want to let you know that. If I hear anything bad, I'll tell you in private.
I appreciate that. Well, it means a lot that you share that. The thing, you know, the EMS is kind of unique in many ways. Anything pre-hospital, law enforcement, fire get this a lot too, but it's a very short-term relationship we have with the patient. And we send these people out on this journey that sometimes lasts, especially with a stroke patient, for months, if not the rest of their lives. And we are such a tiny, small, but very relevant part of that. A lot of times we don't get follow-up information, especially, you know, the compliments. It's not that they don't think we did a good job, it's just there's so many other things going on in our world. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, for the new members, if they don't already know, there's a bulletin board over at headquarters that they post hundreds of thank yous that we get from people. And it's an amazing board to sit there and read. And in fact, I've asked the chief to consider in his report sharing some of those with us occasionally. I mean, very good point, absolutely.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Chief, Mrs. Boobery pointed out, we got 32 grand back in workman's comp. Do you attribute that to anything? I mean, I realize going into it, it's just a guesstimate based upon our industry and those kind of things, but are you doing any kind of specialized training or?
We do. They, every time we've had work comp come in, actually, let me rephrase that. Every time I have been in charge of work comps came, they've said great things. I mean, yes, we've had years where more people got hurt than others. That has a big bearing on it. But we really try to focus on a lot of safety training around here. They're daily shift, not daily, but every shift. They do a briefing when they come on. It's usually some sort of just an old-fashioned safety briefing if there's something that came up. I was just discussing with Chief Harding at Pettis County Fire before the board meeting tonight about how our crews respond to some of these accidents before fire gets there, and maybe revealing some more training opportunities. But yeah, we do a ton of training on that. Whether it's we try not to focus too much on the online stuff because it's just not that useful. It's better to do it in person. And in fact, today, the NAMT safety course used to be 16 hours, I believe it's boiled down to 8 now, is a multitude of classes from anywhere from lifting safety to the health and well-being of the providers, driving safety. I teach one called crew resource management, which is, we stole that from the airline industry. If you see something, say something type of culture. So we've really tried to kind of tie it into our entire foundational experience here at PCAD. It's a cult safety, should be cultural. I think we do a pretty good job of it. So yeah, I appreciate you asking that. Lots of training.
In reference to your safety programs, things like this, I'd like to let the other members understand. One of the biggest things that puts these ambulance technicians out are lifting injuries. And the equipment that we have, we spend a lot of money on it.
Saves us a lot.
What's a basic stretcher system now with the plate and everything else in the unit? Is he talking $6,000, $10,000?
Oh, the stretcher and the power load?
Yeah.
More than that. We're talking around 30.
All right, $30,000 per Band-Aid buggy. And that has probably saved us a considerable amount of money.
Average
So-
back injury is around 100,000.
But see, our supporting that is what is important to continue. So as new safety features come available and you know about them or we know about them or whatever, we need to continue to incorporate it because we do have a fine service. And obviously you can see What are we looking at as far as lost days this year?
I
Through the,
don't have that information on
yeah,
me.
that would be an interesting thing to figure out, you know, now and 4 years ago, before we started really having decent structure systems.
I can personally attest to back injuries. In days of old, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be, but yeah, an average back injury, and this is about 10-year-old information, but if the average back injury is gonna cost you about $100,000. So it's, you know, not to mention future losses in work comp rates and so forth. So that's where we really see the difference in work comp rates. Some of it's just unavoidable. There are a couple items, if you'll allow here just for a second. There's a couple items we're looking at now for safety. One's called binder lift. It's a rather expensive system, but we're trying to figure out maybe how to use some of that CARES money for it. And I know Jamie's done some work, putting some numbers together. We haven't had a chance to meet anybody at the county level with that information yet, but we are looking for some additional safety equipment. So, yeah, always in the front of our minds. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the chief? If not, the medical director's report, is he not available? So move on to committee reports, strategic planning committee, and I believe they're planning on setting up committee meetings in September.
Yep.
Unfinished business, bylaw revision approval. That just basically changes our report of minutes, that just reports the principal motions passed or denied by the board. It doesn't report the seconds as directed by Robert's Rules of Order. Are there any questions on that? If not, I take a motion to approve that.
Since I spent a good portion of the day comparing this with what we got, I find that the only thing that's changed is actually the highlighted stuff, so I would like to make a motion
Okay.
that we accept.
John Fritz seconded that.
No, I like discussion.
Yes.
Have we abided by our bylaws and allowed the 30-day clock to run on this change? Which any change in the bylaw requires a 30-day period to run. Are we aware of that? That is, actually, it's here in the bylaws. And I don't know, Jamie, did we speak about this? Didn't we speak about this and bring up that 30-day issue?
That's, I believe that's why the delay until we approved.
Right, so 30 days and
Yes.
Okay, very good, Mr. Chairman, I'm fine, and I'll second that motion.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The coming ambulance delivery. Pretty much discussed that.
I noticed they made a few changes here. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I noticed they made a few changes here. I mean, small changes, cost us $400. But, you know, we're gonna buy another one, and another one after that. Can we get that rolled into the original price?
Yeah.
I mean, the striker floor plate, I would figure that since that's the second time we've had one.
This is actually something I approved it while we were out there. It's one of the things I've been trying to get built, fabricated for our units that we have. There's those power load cots are great, but if you ever run a mass casualty incident, you're going to be taking that cot out and in all likelihood putting a non-power load cot in there.
Mm-hmm.
The only way you do that is this little bar assembly like the old style cot releases. That whole assembly is just kept in an outboard unit, and it's got a big aluminum bolt, and it's just floating around out there, getting banged around, banging into other stuff. So what I asked them to do was take that floor mounting bracket where it actually gets affixed to the floor of the ambulance and put one of those brackets in the side compartments of the shelf. So that's what they did. I think it's a good fix, but I think we probably find a cheaper way to do it on units coming after that one. So, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I forgot to mention.
And what's a remote cable stop?
The remote cable stop.
That's what it says. Change orders, install a remote cable stop on drawer F.
Oh, okay, there's a drawer that comes out next to the stretcher where the stretcher goes in. Basically, that drawer can come out and bang the patient right inside. So they put a remote or a stop cable on it. I don't think that was,
We say ourselves $100 or something like that next time. There's minor things, but as we build these and work these, and we integrate them into the new plans, we should, and they should be happy with it too, because they're selling our design to other people.
you know, my little bracket, I was kind of hoping to sell distractors, but they haven't been on it yet, so.
Yeah, I didn't worry about that. You can get that. They've done all the lettering and everything else on the Band-Aid buggy?
All the what?
Lettering?
Yeah, lettering looks good. It's mostly wrapped. There's some stickers on there where it says Pettis County across the front of has a couple decals and the Pettis County, or excuse me, Pettis County Ambulance District logo and then Pettis County across the front of the air district unit. The rest of it's pretty much wrapped. The reflective chevrons on the back, the big stars on the side. But yeah, it looks really good. They did all that out in North Carolina this time.
I think we can do it there than this year.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
It might be a good time for us to think about the future order regarding the next ambulance, which if the board made the decision this evening would end up in the 2021 budget. Ms. Lubring has said that she sees fit in the budget for such. And I just want to review real quick, it might help your decision making here with regard to current mileages on our ambulances. We have 3 ambulances with over 210,000 miles and 1 with 185,000. And then we have 2 at 150,000 miles. So as we spoke as a board, it's in the best interest, we thought that we get a step in advance to get these ambulances ordered. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go on the chief's recommendation that we move forward to allow Roy to place the next order for our ambulance, next ambulance. I think he's got that information available. So.
Is there any other discussion? Yes.
On that particular, the monies for that ambulance are not available till next fiscal year.
Yeah.
But us ordering it, we won't be delivering till next fiscal year. Correct. So it's not really extra cost to us, other than the fact that it's just us stepping forward, thinking forward.
Get it in the pipeline.
Is there any danger that we wouldn't be able to pay for it once we ordered it?
Absolutely, and you know, there's opportunity there to think about what your options are available. One would be to temporarily lease purchase the unit. That would probably be financially the best avenue, which AED offers those terms to us. We've looked at those terms previously, so we have an understanding of what those are. So, and Eric would be glad, and Roy would be glad to share that data with you. So that would be the next option.
I guess what I'm wondering is if you commit to order it, it sounds like they're gonna, expect us to pay for it. And if there isn't the money to do it, then we get a bad relationship with them. That's all I'm wondering about.
Sure.
Sure. If there's no doubt that we're gonna have money available to get what we planned for, then I'm okay with it. But
Yeah, and our CFO she's available for that question.
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball just like the rest of us, but just like John stated, we, worst comes to worst, we can lease that ambulance. It's still the same process. It's just that
Be the same.
We're basically
same-
trying to.
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah. It'd be our unit, the one they put together for us, yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yep. Yep. It would be the same process. It was just at the end. Yep.
Yes, sir.
With this purchase, would it be to replace a unit or to increase the number in a fleet?
The one that would be here after the first year.
The one we're talking about,
We're talking
ordering now.
about, just, it'd be replaced. Be, looking at unit 1 or 2.
And probably unit 1 is what we're thinking because it has the least amount of work that's been done to it.
Correct.
As far as major components. And now just mind you, in units 1, 2, which have the 200,000, then unit 7, which is 185,000, and then unit 6, which is the 220,000, they're all the old Osage boxes. So as we get rid of those, we'll be able to start doing the remounts, which would be much cheaper, so.
But you're looking 2 years down the road for that.
Yeah, and, and then keep in mind, units 8 and 9 that we have down in Windsor, it's the chief's recommendation that we don't go back to units like that. They're disposable ambulances. They have no value, and we pay about the same money for them. So, again, the chief wants to keep an alive fleet, so we're looking at a couple units down there. I mean, I think we've looked at the data, and chief, correct me if I'm wrong, about 3,000 miles a month that you're racking up on each individual ambulance. So we need to keep thinking ahead so we don't end up with a motor repair or an rear end repair and we're asking chief what happened.
So these next units, we're switching the boxes over. Is that what I understood?
No, we're not, these aren't, the next ones we order are not remounts, not yet.
They're new boxes to replace the Osages,
Right, new ambulances to replace those.
the Osage box.
Yeah, the Osage box, the AED won't even remount.
And what dollars are you talking? Isn't that like 280 or something like that? Oh,
To remount,
no, the total ambulance.
The 241,000, we did it.
215.
215.
Yeah, 215, 741 for the one that's
Now,
ready.
please remind yourself that with the replacement of, just so we talk about this, is 215,000 for the unit. With the newer units that we're getting, the next couple of units we're getting, we're still going to have to upgrade radio systems and computer systems.
And power cot.
And you're talking about what?
And power cot. These have the old cots in them. The old ambulances do not have the power low systems.
But we threw out a number of like 280,000 one time.
that was with all the equipment.
That's with everything on board.
Yeah, that's with the monitor, fan, bomb, the radio stacks, all that stuff.
So these will have an additional cost because additional power cot, correct, chief?
I believe so, yes.
Yes. Okay. That's the power low system we just talked about.
Right.
That's right.
I thought we had that on all of you.
No,
Yes,
Sorry,
Just
Miss
there.
Woodring. She said, well,
We're good there.
Is there any other questions or discussions?
do we want to need a motion to let Roy go ahead and contact those folks? I know that they've spoken to them.
That would be appropriate. Make a motion to go forward.
I'd like to make a motion for Roy Pennington to move forward with negotiating the next purchase of a AED ambulance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. New business. Since we have none, we'll move on to announcements. Anybody have any announcements? Yes.
Yes. I think maybe a good time to review any marketing strategies that we might have previously talked about that maybe we might want to invoke now with regard to the 16th Street property. More specific, do we want to consider realtors? we've had, a decent track record, and the Pettis County Economic Development said they'd be happy to continue their efforts in the same manner in conjunction with the listing or the use of realtor services. So I want to put that out there for you folks to think about. And I ask that maybe if the chairman would believe that the timing would be appropriate, that maybe at our next meeting, you might make a decision on that, Mr. Chairman.
We can leave that there for thought. We can make an agenda item next meeting and discuss it then. Are there any other announcements?
Ryan, I have a question about the purchase of the new ambulance, and I apologize, Jamie probably knows this better than I'm sure. Do they need to vote on anything for the purchase of the one we'll be getting?
That would be-
Yes,
Isn't that included in the bills?
I just
Will
want
be
to
in
make
the
sure.
bills.
the invoices, but the check is there for you guys to sign. So we can
Correct.
pay for the ambulance when we get it. I mean, it was in the budget. That's up to you guys if you want to approve it again. But the check's there.
We do want to approve it again?
I don't find a need to approve it again as a budget item.
Yeah.
And it was the amount that we had contracted with before, so.
230,000 is what's budgeted to include the radio and the Wi-Fi and all the other things that.
Right, and the amount was the same with the exception of the $400 that we had for the cop, old cop deal, so.
If not, we can take a brief recess before we go to closed session.
Brought up last week, the same thing. Brought up the same thing last week, so we're not. Just tell them to stop running over cats and we'll be all right.
She was a rack. Paramedics.
It was like we're all, they little cells that just sit there. Where was that?
Fourth and Ward, come to find out, animal control just picked up the rest of the living up at the park. One got away. Yeah.
Hey, John, how you doing? We're off the air, aren't we?
Mr. Chairman, do you have a problem? It is. This is your bond, we have required on this tonight, since that was one of the right out there.
Oh, chopping down the trees over not the LZ pad, but the other one next closest to the firehouse there.
Mhm.
Yeah, took my chainsaw over there. It looked like a couple little twigs sticking out.
Yeah,
I
it
had that truck stacked up 12 feet in the air with limbs, but it's gone, so it looks a little better.
Have they sprayed out front there yet, chief?
It looked like they had, yeah. I have not talked to them, but it looked like they had sprays and stuff. Most of it.
Which that's an announcement I failed to tell
There's
you
still
about.
some room for improvement.
But yeah, there's still quite a bit that needs to be sprayed.
I was gonna try and work on that back.
Get the weed eater out there.
Back there, but
That's
that's
like
a
telling John,
job.
right?
If I had about 4 other people with chainsaws, we could all go back there and attack it, but by myself, I'd be out there for a month.
Well,
There are a lot of trees out there.
and as far as I'm concerned, that might be something for the next owners, but
Yeah,
up front for the visibility and making it look nice for the city, killing those weeds off of there, what's sidewalk or.
yeah. All of them look dead to me, but they just hadn't been knocked over or anything yet, so.
And Chief, did you get a message or get a contact from National Guard?
No, never called.
Okay. I contacted the chairman, Mr. Brown. I received information from the National Guard, the gentleman that runs here in the community, and requested as a kind neighborly act that on the 14th, which I believe is Thursday or Friday. Anyways, the 14th, the National Guard is going to move their equipment over onto the west side of our property. So they can have their property sprayed for weeds. It'd just be for a couple hours. And I checked with these two gentlemen, they said they agreed, so, if you see vehicles parked, their National Guard vehicles parked on our property, that's what that is.
Tell them to bring the weed eaters with them or flamethrowers.
Well, I was gonna maybe see if the chief would go over and see if they, some of that stuff get loose on our stuff, some of the stuff they're spraying.
They got bodies.
You know, that back fence row back there where all that poison ivy be.
Yeah. I didn't see any new ivy back there along
They
the
probably
fence.
military
where I was
grade
spraying a
stuff
couple
there.
years ago, but there was, I managed to find another clump of it in that big old loading dock area out back, so if it's out there, I can find it.
Still think a Hilton Gardens would look beautiful there. Right, the hotel industry is tee up, man. They're not building nothing.
Looks like our new store in town is doing pretty good.
Tractor Supply Plus or whatever it is.
Yeah, what is the name of that?
Amazon?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I have one. so I think-
My wife went in there and she said, it's just huge. It's got everything. I said, okay, here we go.
They did have lots.
Let me give you your card back and you can go through there a second time.
Well, they are on Tractor Supply.
I've also, I've been there, and I'm just kind of curious what they did inside the store.
I go by there today, and they're-
She was like, for me, it was like a Swishers on hormones.
And
You ever been to Swishers out in Warrensburg?
Oh, just this side of town on
Yeah.
the north side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that, except for it's the type of stuff that they have. There's a lot of other things in there other than what Tractor Supply has. Tractor Supply's got that big an area for clothing.
Yeah.
They've got that big an area for clothing. Crazy. Big boy stuff too.
Yeah. I think about half of my wardrobe's from Marshall's. So about half of my wardrobe's from Marshall's. Sort of just makes me want a bigger garage usually.
We can go ahead and call the meeting back to order. And I'll take a motion to go into closed session pursuant of RSMO 610.021, sections 9.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Mr. Brown?
There.
Say yes.
Yes.
Mr. Rowley?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Ruby?
Yes.
Mr. Meehan?
Yes.
And Mr. Nance?
Yes.